Motivation is external. Discipline comes from within. Motivation is inherently fleeting because it is coming from an external source, which is why, people might do something like get a word or a phrase tattooed on their arm or their wrist or something. And the idea is they're going to look down at it and it's going to motivate them to be healthier or do the right thing or make a different choice. But at the end of the day, it just becomes part of their skin and part of their body. And soon they don't even notice that the tattoo is even there.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I have today on the show Stu, oh my God, I forgot how to pronounce your last name. Kraintz.
It's Kraintz.
Kraintz, yes. All right.
The rain in Spain is mainly on the Kraintz.
All right. Well, we're off to a great start already. So welcome to the show. I had your wife, Jen, on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and she and I really enjoyed the conversation. And then when I learned that you were also a coach and you had a podcast, I said, hey, he's got to come on the show too, because I'm sure we're going to have an awesome conversation. So let's start with your story and introduce yourself to my listeners, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. And Sue, thank you so much for giving me the space and the opportunity to connect with you and your listeners today. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Stewart Kraintz. I am a mindset, success, and relationships coach based here in Columbus, Ohio. I am also the host of the podcast, Your Inside Track to Success, which you can find on any platform you get your podcasts. The journey of how I got to being a coach was a very long and winding one, but I think what's relevant for people is that I was the person that was so bent on achieving success and achieving what I thought success meant that not only was I miserable and unfulfilled, but it actually put me in the hospital from the stress.
Oh, wow.
This is at a time when I was working in the sports industry. I was doing marketing and sales for several different baseball teams. Eventually, I made it to the New York Yankees, which in that world is the pinnacle of pretty much what you can accomplish, maybe them or the LA Dodgers. But, I was just unfulfilled. It was work that I didn't find particularly meaningful. I wasn't contributing to really anything other than, creating memories for fans of the Yankees, which I guess has its own merit, but I was looking for something bigger. But I think the biggest thing is that while my time with the Yankees was definitely the sexiest I've ever been on paper. There was nothing better than Stewart Kraintz, New York Yankees. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
But I just felt so disconnected from who I am authentically, what I was about. It's probably the closest I've ever been to alcoholism in my life. I was severely underweight. For those of you maybe that can see me right now, I weigh about 225. I was all the way down to about 157, just a beanpole of a person. Eventually the universe put me in the hospital. And I used that as my jumping off point of when I realized I needed to make some real changes in my life. And you know what? They were very hard. They were very challenging, lots of ups and downs. It's not like I went straight up and to the right from there. But, I credit that moment of hitting that rock bottom, of starting to look within and actually doing the work necessary to figure out who I am, what my gifts actually are on this planet, and how can I actually start putting them to good use for the betterment of people.
Wow. So in your story, all of us, I'm sure, can relate in some capacity where we've had that defining moment where something happens and we pause, right? In your case, you wound up in the hospital. In my case, I had a couple of traumatic events in a row, and you have that pause and you have that realization that, well, wait a minute, I can keep doing what I'm doing because it's familiar, or I can figure out a different path. And the familiar path is the easy one, right? That's the one. It's like, I already know what to do. I don't have to change, regardless of whether it's good, bad, or destructive or whatever. So talk a little bit about what happened internally for you and maybe externally that changed that path for you, because like you have that choice, right? We can either choose to stay on the path even after the markers happen, or we can jump ship and go somewhere else. What changed for you other than just being in the hospital? Because people can go in the hospital, come out, and then just repeat the pattern over and over again. So obviously something was different for you. Talk a little bit about what that was.
So to drill in on the exact events of the day I left the Yankees and ended up in the hospital, I put in my resignation because I knew this is actually going to kill me. Like I'm not able to handle the 100 hours a week that this job entails, the stress of the clients, the stress of trying to hit sales quotas, and really, quite honestly, the stress of trying to be somebody I wasn't the entire time I was there. I mean, I got a little bit of scruff right now. We had to shave every single day, like clockwork. The piece that I remember the most is my body was actually breaking down. So I'm resigning and I'm running a 105 plus degree fever.
Wow.
I feel horrible, the thinnest I've ever been because my body is shutting down from the stress. And I leave Yankee Stadium with 2 big tote bags of all the stuff that was in my desk. That part of the Bronx, there's like 2 restaurants you can go to. And I remember walking across the street, going and sitting in one of them. I wish I remember the name, but it's a sports bar. And something told me to call my dad to tell him what happened. And this I think is the most important thing. And this was when the light bulb went off. I give him a call and I'm a complete wreck. I'm sobbing, all the snot, like my words are barely coherent. And basically saying to him, I am no longer employed by the New York Yankees, and just feeling like I failed him and that I was somehow not worthy of his love in that moment.
Wow.
And then he immediately met me with, I don't care. I care about you. I care about your wellness and your well-being. Like, just to hear him say that it never mattered to him what I did or what position I held or what I achieved, it made me realize in that moment how much of my life had been in the service of chasing other people's ideas of success or worth or what that meant. And I wasn't ready quite yet in that moment to take a deep look inward because I was running 105 degree fever. But
Yeah, right.
I needed my dad to say to me in that moment, this doesn't matter. Go take care of yourself.
Yeah. Stu, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I would actually capture at that moment that you were believing a lie. You had
Absolutely.
a lie fueling your actions, behaviors, and thought pattern. You thought you had a standard you had to meet for your dad. And here it is, your dad's releasing you from something that you had believed was a lie. How often do we walk around assuming things are true when they're really not? So it was great that you called him, at that point. Just for context, how many years ago did this happen?
July 29th, 2016. I'll never forget the date.
Okay, 9 years ago then.
Yeah. Wow. And, I want the listeners to know that, for me, it was my dad. And another layer of that, it was like the cool kids. Like I realize now how much of my life was trying to chase the approval of the kids that bullied me growing up, the in crowd that I never felt like I got to be a part of. And
I can relate.
Yeah. And I know so many people listening to this can. For me, it looked like, hey, I'm not athletically gifted enough to be the big sports star. I'm going to go be Stu the sports guy, like Jerry Maguire style. And I'm sure you have like a similar story.
Yeah. I mean, how often do we? I do. You try so hard to fit in, and it sometimes winds up backfiring. And then you create stories around what it is that you want to do in order to fit into a certain box. For you, what was it like to pursue, after that defining moment, what was it like to pursue really your authentic self? Because you mentioned a couple of times that, you're working this job with the Yankees. It didn't fit who you were. You knew there was something within you that's like, this is not who I am supposed to be. So talk a little bit about what happened afterwards and what are some things that you did to find what was authentically you to bring you to where you are now, to create a life that is in alignment with who you are. I think a lot of us, that's the big $64,000 question, isn't it? There's a lot of us walking around in life doing jobs that don't align with who we are, but feel that we have to do that job because, well, you got bills to pay. You've got stuff you have to do, but yet deep down it's not really who you are. So talk about your journey in that respect.
Yeah. I mean, I could really go like blow for blow with everything that I did to try to get to this point. But I think to answer your question, obviously we get to figure out like getting our needs met, like food, shelter, things of that nature. But what worked for me was having the audacity to just try things and releasing attachment to what anything looked like. So while I was at the New York Yankees, where you're in a suit and tie every day, clean shaven, you're fitting their image, again, totally divorced from any understanding of who I am, what I'm about, I was actually my least confident version of myself. I was the least disciplined version of myself. And it's because I was so concerned about upholding this image at all costs. But what actually flipped the script for me was, like taking the risk of, I like to say, sucking at something new, like trying new hobbies, trying different jobs. I definitely flamed out of a couple more jobs after the Yankees, but it was in the service of me trying to figure it out.
Right. How did you guard yourself against failure in doing those things? Because you could, failure would creep in. Oh, I tried this job. I only lasted 3 months. Oh, I tried this one. I only lasted a couple months. So talk about how you just kept going.
Yeah. So I definitely didn't view it this way at the time, but I think that failure is actually a gift, because as long as you're taking the lessons forward from what's happening or what is, let me start that over. As long as
I love that. No, I love that. Failure is a gift. I mean, turning it around. I've never heard it said that way before.
Yeah, it's neutral feedback. So like, I'll give you a perfect example. I got cast into this role at New York City YMCA where I was managing their ad budget on an annual basis. I don't actually know how I got that role, hindsight being 2020. I guess I was a smooth talker or something, but I had no experience with ad buys, no experience managing anything like that, no experience selling complex ad campaigns to stakeholders for approval. And I failed miserably in that role. And, I took that with some work. I took that as neutral feedback. Like, hey, this is not the type of role I'm going to succeed in. I can check that box. It's valuable experience because I learned these skills. I met these people. Like, nothing is truly a failure unless you decide it is. And yes, like, we get to put food on the table. Yes, we would like to be growing our bank accounts, to have security, all those things. But it's honestly, Sue, just having the bravery to go in there, give it your best. If it works out, amazing, like keep going. But if not, pivot into something new. And I think the thing that I want to really land here, because this is the basis of the coaching that I do, is that we build self-confidence by keeping our promises to ourselves, but only if we acknowledge ourselves for what we're doing, especially if we're going outside of our comfort zones. And I was completely out of my comfort zone the entire time trying to make it work at New York City YMCA. Like, I don't harbor any bad feelings towards that organization. Like, YMCA is a great organization, right?
It just wasn't a good fit for you. You thought it would be. It just wasn't. And you went out and you tried it,
Yeah.
So I mean, I hope anybody listening hears that it's okay to do that. And in full disclosure, I went into a role a couple months ago, middle of last year. I didn't last very long because I very similar to your story. I don't really know how I got that role. I did. And I didn't have the foundation that I needed in order to make that successful. So, of course, I was let go. And I don't view it as a failure. I view it as an extreme, amazing learning experience. So I'm thankful for it. It was an obstacle, not an obstacle, but it was something that just made me stronger. I mean, in your story, I heard you talk about in the beginning, like you didn't really have that confidence. So let's talk about this idea of confidence and how you define it and why it really matters.
Yeah, so confidence isn't walking around all day like I am the best, look at me. I know social media in particular champions people that really are just putting on an image, in my opinion. But it's not about carrying yourself like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, but it's just developing your belief in yourself to the point that when life happens, when the bad things happen, because they will, they don't take you out. Like you're able to get up off of the mat, so to speak. It's not if life is going to take you down. It's when it does, how are you able to pick yourself back up? Truth be told, in the moment with the YMCA, I was still not a very confident person. I was still internalizing a lot of what didn't work as like my personal failure. But because I've done this type of work, I've worked with some great coaches, I've done emotional intelligence seminars to really hone this skill, I can take a fat so to speak, on a sales call or on a coaching call with a client, or maybe I put out a podcast episode on my show and it's not like everything I hoped it would be, but I'm able to just take it as neutral feedback and it's like, okay, this didn't work. Ask myself the question, why didn't it work? What am I going to do next time? And in your example with your role, you could be throwing yourself a pity party now, even though that role was something that came and went a couple of months ago. But you're in a place where you're able to talk about it objectively, use it as the growth opportunity that it is, and just move on with your life to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm I'm glad you brought up the job that I could throw myself a pity party now, and the event happened in November. It's now the beginning of February when we're recording this, and you're right, I could. But what was interesting about that experience was, first of all, I knew the end was coming. So I saw it. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. And when it happened, I resolved myself to have this anti-fragile confidence, just way of dealing with it. So when I was brought into the office and said, by the way, this is your last day, you're done. I need all your passwords and finish everything up and you don't need to come back in anymore. I was like, okay, all right, what do you need? Fine. Okay, fine. And I did everything that I needed to do, but I did have those moments where I went home and I'm like, God, what could I have done differently? What could I have done? Like, where could I go? So in those moments, those are the ones where you take them and you're like, okay, this is neutral ground for feedback. Yeah. This is, yes, I've quote unquote failed here, but what could I do differently when I walk into the situation the next time? So I think it's what we do afterwards and the questions we ask ourselves while we're evaluating the failures and how we view the situation. And the one thing that somebody brought up to me when I walked through that, they said, there is stuff going on behind the scenes that you're not aware of. And it is very possible that somebody else was pulling the strings and that told the person who fired me to fire me. It may not necessarily have been that person. It's just that he was told to do that. I'll never know. It doesn't matter. It's in a better place, right? You have to, sometimes you lose things or you have to leave something for something better to come along because there's only so much energy. There's only so much space that can happen in your life at that time,
Yeah.
And then the question I have is that after you lose, can we find our confidence after we lose it? If something really knocks us over and some get back up, some don't. What are some tools or a few things we could do to really pull ourselves out of a rut when our confidence takes a really oversized hit?
Yeah, so I got two things for you, Sue, and I hope the audience like really listens to this, it's gonna sound silly for those folks that haven't heard this before, but it's backed by a lot of great research. It's backed by experts that are far smarter than me. But it's two things. So again, we build self-confidence by keeping our promises to ourselves, as long as we're acknowledging ourselves for what we're up to. And a lot of people think of self-acknowledgement, celebrating ourselves, celebrating our wins as, well, I can only celebrate the big thing. Like I can only celebrate the promotion, or I can only celebrate getting the job, or I can only celebrate whatever the thing is, like whatever big socially recognized marker of success. That's the only thing that's valid and worth celebrating. And those are great things, but how many humongous wins do you have in your life versus the small little daily ones every single day? And I'm talking like, y'all, when I was done with the Yankees and I hadn't figured any of this out yet, there were days where if I ate breakfast, that was a great day for me. If I got out of bed before 9 a.m. and like wasn't just a zombie on my phone all day, that was a great day for me.
Right. Stacking the small stuff.
Yeah, but it's important because I think what a lot of us do is we get knocked off, we get knocked down. Maybe we're experiencing depression, maybe we're struggling with mental health issues. It's so easy on Instagram, TikTok, any of these other social media platforms to look at somebody who is better looking and has more money than you and allow that to make yourself feel bad about yourself.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is you're only ever competing against yourself. You're only competing against who you were yesterday. And if you start to create the little wins, it does not matter how small. Like, for example, if you're struggling with depression and you got out of bed and you got dressed today and you went for a walk, celebrate that, because that is important. That is valuable. And you know what? You matter because you are taking actions for you and they matter. So I think it's celebrate your wins no matter how small. Don't judge yourself for how small they are, because you only have to live with you at the end of the day. So make sure that you are feeding yourself things that are going to build that confidence, which is acknowledging yourself, which has been proven scientifically to change how you view yourself in the mirror as you build that credibility. Especially if you're like, I'm getting out of bed today, I'm walking my dog, I'm going to walk at least a mile, and then you do it. Building that credibility is how you regain your confidence.
Yeah. And then
I got one more point I want to make, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I totally meant to grab this book and have it up here to like show the audience, and that's on me. A book I would recommend to anybody is called Presence by Amy Cuddy. That's Cuddy. At the time she wrote the book, Amy Cuddy had the second most watched TED Talk on YouTube. I think she's since been surpassed, but super valuable. The too long didn't read version of that book, ladies and gentlemen, is you can physically create in your body the feeling you want to experience if you start with a movement or a motion or a pose. She talks about being in the Superman or Superwoman pose. Yep. They make a joke about
Heroes
this on
pose.
Yes, exactly. They make a joke about this on an episode of Grey's Anatomy. I was watching it with my wife, and they're about to do a super stressful surgery, and the surgeons are all hitting the Superman, Superwoman pose.
You know, there's science behind that. I was I just finished a 10-month-long coaching program where they talked about your physical presence, how you hold yourself, how you sit. Are your shoulders back? Are they slumped over? Is your head held high? Is your chin up? Are you breathing? But what's fascinating about all that is there is the science behind it that supports sports, the positive reactions within the body when you do strike that hero's pose. Yeah, you just, when you start observing people and you start looking for it, you can tell the people that have that confidence, inner confidence within them by how they stand. It's interesting that you brought that up, because I had a conversation with a friend yesterday and we were talking about how you can size up somebody, and if you can watch them in 30 seconds, watch how they move. And you can determine who, like what their inner thoughts and beings are just by watching them walking. And it's actually come from acting. I didn't realize this, but a lot of actors and actresses, that's what they do. They are trained to do that. Very, very interesting. There was, just to recap, because there was so much within you, what you just said, keeping promises to ourselves. And I want to come back to that in a minute. Celebrating the wins. And the thing about celebrating wins that I'm sure you would also talk about too, but I also want to make sure everybody understands that when you celebrate a win, it does not have to be go eat a candy bar. It does not have to be go buy something. It doesn't have to be I'm going to now post it on Facebook. The win, celebrating a win, could be just a fist pump. Yeah, got it. That's it. Where you're creating that within your body, you're creating that movement, you're creating the internal satisfaction rather than running to something externally. The only reason that I really noticed this is because I struggled for so long. I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I never allowed myself to celebrate any of the accomplishments that I did. So it's really been a process within the last year, honestly, of searching for, like, actually seeing those small wins and allowing myself to sit in the win. Even it doesn't even have to be that long. Just sit in the win. Third thing you brought up was only compare yourself to who you were yesterday. So I got two questions I want to circle back to. The first is I want you to talk about keeping promises to ourselves. What does that mean? We hear that, but how do you define that?
Yeah, so I think when people hear that, they think of the big goal, like the really big, I'm going to get the raise, I'm going to get the promotion, I'm going to write the book, I'm going to lose the weight, whatever the big thing is. Really, it's just developing the integrity with yourself that you're going to be your word with you, and developing that over time from personal experience, from watching my wife do it, from watching other people create lives beyond their wildest dreams. It really does start with the smallest thing. I know I was using the getting out of bed example, but something as simple as if you have a bigger weight goal, like I'm going to lose however many pounds this week, or this year. Maybe it's as small as you tell yourself you're going to have a piece of cantaloupe for dessert instead of the Klondike bar, or you're going to walk to and from work if you have that luxury versus driving, or whatever the thing is. Mm-hmm. And then actually doing it and acknowledging yourself for the fact that you did it, because the acknowledgement piece is key. Because if you don't, then you're just achieving, and you actually lead to burnout, I find. If there's no, like, I did the thing. Yes. Mm-hmm. I love that you said the fist pump, by the way, because that's actually one of the things that works. It doesn't have to be go buy something to celebrate it. It could just be...
Yeah.
Yes.
Could be, or think of Rocky, two fists in the air. But yeah, that physical internal, I struggled with that for a long time. It's like, how do I celebrate something? It has to be outside of myself. And I can't tell you exactly where, when, or how it happened, but I was like, wait a minute, it's not outside myself. I don't have to. And if you can create it internally, then you have that continual way to reward yourself. You don't always have to go look for something new, so that
and if I just can add this one thing, I know it's going to sound hokey to a lot of people that, like, oh, you went for the run you said you were going to go do some fist pumps or do this motion to pump yourself up. I'm suggesting the motion because it's often easier for people to do a motion than it is for them to tap into the feeling. And the reason is because of all the conditioning, all the trauma we've had, everything that we've had that makes us believe that feeling our feelings is wrong it's easier to do that override of, like, this is the silliest thing, but I coach people all the time. If I'm trying to celebrate something or at least just get their energy up, I have them do this.
Mm-hmm.
In some arenas, people call it the stew arms. It's such a ridiculous thing, but it works.
Yeah.
Like, I have so
Yeah.
much more energy right now than I did, but I've had enough practice with this that I'm actually am able to pay off a big credit card and just sit there for a minute and just be like, wow, I remember when this felt impossible. This feels really good that I don't have this monthly payment anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
I,
what
I
we're
would,
working towards.
I was thinking the fist pump. You know what the other would be to for the maybe gal version here, give ourselves a hug, where I've done that before too, where it's like you're grabbing yourself on each side, and giving that big giant bear hug to yourself. So that's another way to celebrate. So it's really cool. You know what? You talked about comparison and you made the comment, you said, only compare yourself to who you were yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And to help you, to continue to move forward, small wins forward. Do you think there is any constructive way to compare yourself to others when it would actually be a good idea?
So I do, but it's a slippery slope and people need to be really honest with themselves. So I'm going to use Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as an example. I think for many men in particular in our society, he is our North Star of impossible masculinity right now. He's good looking, he is jacked beyond belief, he's super wealthy, he's very famous. He's at least for a time, the most followed American male on Instagram. Like that, like every traditional marker of success, he checks all the boxes, right? So I can look at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in a movie or on Instagram or in a commercial, because he's, selling any number of products these days. And I can either use that as motivation or I can use it to just compare. And what I mean by motivation is actually taking an objective look at what he is doing and what can I take from that and apply it to my life that would, if not provide the same type of success, but at least move me forward. And here, the good example is his cheat meals are stuff of legend. It's not that I'm going to go eat 4,000 calories worth of pancakes for breakfast like he will on his cheat meal day. But what I can take from The Rock is that, hey, I have fitness goals. I have dreams. I want to look, bigger and sexier than I do right now. I need to get my diet on point in order to do that. And maybe I can compare his approach and his discipline in that he's still living his life. He's going to go have these epic cheat meal days, but he puts them on the calendar. Mm-hmm. And he knows if he holds to his plan, like no BS, he can have that cheat meal day. That's where comparison can actually work. It's when you look at process. It's when you look at approach. I love biographies for that reason. I'm always trying to gain a little nugget of something from people I look up to and admire. But that's pretty much the only way. And you need to be really conscious of how you're comparing yourself if you're going to do that.
Okay. So that begs the question. So in order to, out of the comparison, discipline, you have to become disciplined to,
Sure.
To let's take the eating, to have 6 strict days and then have the cheat day on the 7th day. To you, what's the difference between discipline and motivation?
Yeah, and I'm really glad you asked this because it's really important. So to answer the question directly, motivation is external. Discipline comes from within. Motivation is inherently fleeting because it is coming from an external source, which is why people might do something like get a word or a phrase tattooed on their arm or their wrist or something. And the idea is they're going to look down at it and it's going to motivate them to be healthier or do the right thing or make a different choice. But at the end of the day, it just becomes part of their skin and part of their body. And soon they don't even notice that the tattoo is even there. Right? So you can always look for new things to motivate you. I know legendarily, Michael Jordan would always create things to motivate him to go play at his best. But really, how we do any of this, how we actually move the needle for ourselves, is to develop discipline. Discipline is just making the choice every single day. And we are making hundreds, if not thousands, of choices every day, whether we know it or not. Is this choice, whatever it is the food, is working out or staying in bed, is that going to move me towards my highest good? Is that going to move me towards my goal, my vision for my life? Is it going to let anybody down? Like, are there people relying on me to make the right decision here? Discipline is really just choosing your vision, choosing your goals, and honestly, choosing yourself every single day. And something that resonates with me is I do believe in God. I do believe in a higher power. I believe that he, they, whatever you want to say, has given us a purpose, given us a mission in life, given us a reason for being here on this earth. And I believe that it's up to us to figure out what that is, but also do right by our Creator in order to develop our gifts and share them with the world. And if I'm staying up way too late watching Netflix, which I know is a trap for me because I love great storytelling, and then I don't get up at 5:30 in the morning to run, like, am I actually serving my highest good? Like, no, I'm not. I'm actually robbing the world of who I am, what I can provide, and I'm not actually benefiting by watching Squid Game Season 2.
I've learned and heard it said that your next day is actually set up the night before. How you end your day actually sets up for you how you begin the next day. So, and what you were just talking about made me think of that. If you stay up till 12 o'clock watching Netflix, chances are getting up at 5 o'clock to go do that run it's going to be a little more difficult. You might, but you can't sustain it. That's for sure. We started to go there and didn't quite touch on it. What were some defining moments or some things that you did that helped you recognize your purpose? Because you knew the Yankees was not where you were supposed to be. You talked about, several jobs after that didn't quite work out, and you failed forward, and learned from them. What were some things you did to help you find your purpose?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I think the short version of the story is that I continued to flame out of jobs left and right, trying to find the right thing, trying to find the right fit, and thinking about how things are always happening for me, which is a lesson I learned. I picked that up off of listening to Ed Milet's podcast years ago, but that was such a light bulb moment. Trying to view all of the bad things through that lens started helping me look at things objectively. And so as I continued to flame out of these roles, I wasn't completely horrible at all of them, right? Like, there were aspects I was really good at. There are also things I was bad enough at that I couldn't continue on that path. But taking everything as a learning opportunity instead of a failure, I asked myself one day, what's the through line? Like, what's the theme
Common
here?
thread, yeah.
Like, what about these roles did I enjoy? Like, what was I good at? And it wasn't sales. It wasn't marketing. It was people. Like, I figured out by journaling on it pretty extensively that my gift, my talent is people. And then looking back at it, doing the exercise of looking back in time at all these different things where I can just point at that prove that, oh, I'm actually excellent at relating to, reading people, winning them over to my way of thinking, supporting them and winning them. I want to start that over, but supporting them in creating a vision for themselves and helping them get there. And one of the sales roles I was in, I won't name names in terms of the company, but they were pretty notorious. We were selling slots in a coding boot camp, and they introduced this new financial instrument in order to help people make it more affordable. The whole premise of the operation was, come pay $15,000 for this coding boot camp. We will help you get the job. And if we don't help you get the job in 6 months after you graduate, you get all your money back. and we had like a 98% success rate. Like we were crushing it.
Wow.
We introduced this financial instrument, which is a shared income agreement. So that's no money down, no money up front. Do the program, graduate, and then you pay it back as a percentage of your income once we get you the job. Sounds great, right? Problem is, there was a rider in the contract that these students were signing that if they were in the program for 7 days and didn't graduate, they were on the hook for the entirety of the agreement financially.
Wow.
And this was not disclosed to us as the salespeople.
Wow.
To compound it, they start marketing this in a way like learn to code, pay us back later. So we had people coming out of the woodwork just trying to get a job that were trying to sign up for this thing that very clearly had no aptitude, no real interest in coding, but were so desperate for a career that paid good money that they were like begging to let us in.
Yeah. But a lot of them, it probably wasn't in what they should have been doing for a job,
And
wasn't the natural inclination. Wow.
And I credit this moment as being where I started coaching people, because I could have just taken their money and made the sale and moved up in the organization like some of my colleagues did. But I was coming from a place of, I can't put this person on the hook for their livelihood if they can't handle this. So I actually was coaching people to not sign up for this program, which is in direct contradiction to the purpose of my role.
To the actual job, yeah. It's interesting about that story, though, and I have interviewed quite a few coaches for my podcast, and I can't think of one. Actually, all of them that I can think of, their coaching journey started pretty much the same like yours. I didn't start out to be a coach, but X, Y, and Z happened, and then I realized that this is what I'm really good at, and people started finding me. I just love the story. I really do. I think it's awesome that some of the best coaches, the most successful coaches, are the ones that didn't go looking for that opportunity, but the opportunity came to them. And the other thing that I want to point out in your story is that you actually recognized it and then you continued to lean into it.
Yeah.
Rather than just letting it go and you could have just dismissed it as, okay, this was part of the job. I was just trying to help these people out. So the takeaway that I have from that is really stop, pause, and look at the things that are going on in your life around you and ask yourself the question, is the universe, God, universe, whatever you want to put in the slot there, trying to get my attention for me to do something, and is this my best, highest use of like why I'm even here? And to see that. So I love the story. I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah. And I just want to say one thing, ladies and gentlemen. It might be really uncomfortable what that answer might be when you're asking yourself that. Like for me, I was basically torpedoing my own standing with my employer because I was refusing to sell something that was so predatory. And, they have since gone back and nullified all of these horrific agreements. But, I was being told sell, 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 sell. And I was just like, in my good conscience and in my heart, no.
Can't do it. Yeah.
But it was the springboard for me because I chose that. I chose to help people, which again, as I said earlier, is my through line, is people.
Yeah. So Stu, before you did mention the book that you suggest everybody should read, that's Presence by Amy Cuddy. What's one question or topic you wish I would have asked you about, and how would you have answered it or expanded on it as we're coming to a close?
That doesn't even feel fair because I felt like this was such a good conversation.
Well, that's an answer too.
I think that the story of my adulthood has been learning how to be a confident man, like in the way God made me. And, because of that, it's the basis of what I do as a coach. So like I could jam out on confidence for another hour and a half, with stories and anecdotes. So maybe that, but I think this was an awesome conversation.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like anybody who had listened and got this far to the end probably would have taken notes at this point.
Right.
I love to ask all my guests the same closing question. So as we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
Write out all of your goals, no matter how silly they might feel. Break those down into smaller pieces, smaller action steps, and just get started. And in getting started, acknowledge yourself every step of the way. Doesn't matter how small of an action step you take. Here's one for me. I redid my Calendly link so that I can more effectively and efficiently get people on my podcast. I did that this morning in 15 minutes. I'm acknowledging that. Don't judge yourself for how small the step is. Just keep taking steps.
Thank you, Stu. How can people find you?
Yeah, so the website is being rebuilt. So I am going to encourage folks to follow me on any social media. I am at Stewart Kraintz on everything. Stewart is Stewart, Kraintz, Krain, N as in Nancy, T as in Tom, Z as in zebra, at Stewart Kraintz on everything. And then if you want to email me, I'm very open. I'll maybe even hop on a call with you if it feels aligned. Stewart@stewartkraintz.com.
Well, thank you so much for the gift of your time. This has been an amazing conversation. I enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you so much, Sue. We'll have you on my show as well.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me, and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.